For 6 straight days, I worked grueling 12-hour shifts on an empty stomach. Not because I was broke, and not because I forgot to pack a lunch, but because a thief in my workplace decided that my food was theirs for the taking. Day after day, I was left with nothing but hunger and a simmering rage. So on the 7th day, I decided to cook the thief a very special meal. A meal so unforgettable, it would end with flashing lights and a screaming ambulance. They wanted my lunch? Fine. I was about to serve them a dish of pure, unadulterated justice. If you know that feeling deep in your gut when enough is finally truly enough, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video if you believe that sometimes karma needs a little helping hand. You're not going to want to miss a single spicy detail of how the lunchbox bandit finally got what he deserved. Let's get into it. Our story starts about 3 years ago, in the guts of a massive factory. And when I say massive, I mean it. It was a sprawling metal labyrinth of roaring machinery, hissing hydraulics, and the constant, sharp smell of welding fumes and industrial lubricant. It was the kind of place where you could get lost twice on your way to the bathroom. The noise was a physical presence, a constant hum that vibrated through the steel-toed boots and settled deep in your bones. You didn't talk. You shouted. You didn't walk. You navigated an obstacle course of pallets, forklifts, and other workers who were just as focused on not getting run over as you were. And the people? They were a ghost army. The company hired through 5 different temp agencies. 5. That meant the factory was less of a workplace and more of a human revolving door. Faces changed weekly, sometimes daily. You'd spend a whole shift working next to a guy named Dave, and the next morning, he'd be gone, replaced by a guy named Mike who wouldn't be there by Friday. There were no bonds, no camaraderie, no hey, see you tomorrow. It was an anonymous sea of bodies, each of us, just a number on a timesheet, trying to survive the 12-hour grind. This anonymity is important, because in a place with no community, there are no consequences. And that's how the Lunchbox Bandit was born. It started on a Monday. I was 6 hours into a 12-hour shift. My back ached. My feet were screaming, and the only thing keeping me going was the thought of the leftover roast beef sandwich I'd packed. It wasn't just any sandwich. It was thick-cut roast beef, sharp provolone cheese, a little horseradish sauce, on a fresh Kaiser roll. It was a king's lunch for a factory grunt. I walked into the break room, a small, sad room with flickering fluorescent lights and mismatched chairs, and I opened the fridge, and nothing. My lunchbox, a simple, black, soft-sided cooler, was gone. Confusion came first. Did I put it in the wrong fridge? I checked the other one. Nope. Did I leave it in my car? A frantic mental check confirmed I'd brought it in. Then, a slow, creeping dread. I scanned the trash cans. And there it was. My empty lunchbox, tossed in the bin like garbage, with a few crumbs and a single lonely pickle slice left inside. Someone hadn't just taken it by mistake. They had devoured my food and discarded the evidence. A hot flash of anger shot through me, but I pushed it down. Maybe it was a one-time thing. A new guy who was desperate. I spent the last 6 hours of my shift fueled by a bag of stale vending machine chips and a deep, gnawing hunger. Tuesday came. This time, it was 2 perfectly grilled chicken breasts with a side of rice and green beans. I was taking no chances. I wrote my name on a piece of masking tape and slapped it right on the lid of my Tupperware. Mark. Big, black, bold letters. You couldn't miss it. Lunchtime came. I walked to the break room. I opened the fridge. My Tupperware was there. I let out a sigh of relief, and then I picked it up. It was light. Too light. I opened it, and my heart sank. It was empty. Licked clean. They'd eaten my food and put the empty container back. The disrespect was staggering. This wasn't a mistake. This was a statement. This was someone telling me, I see your lunch. I know it's yours. And I don't care. I will take it anyway. The rage I felt that afternoon was different. It wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. It was a heavy, dense weight. in my chest. Who? Who would do this? I looked around the factory floor. Every face was a potential suspect. The quiet guy on the assembly line? The loud-mouthed forklift driver? The new woman from the temp agency? It could be any of them. In this revolving door of strangers, I was completely alone with this problem. This went on for the entire week. Wednesday, my pasta salad vanished. Thursday, my ham and Swiss croissants. Friday, my chili. Saturday, my pulled pork. 6 straight days. 6 12-hour shifts with no food. 6 nights I'd go home, exhausted and starving. My stomach a hollow, aching pit. I was becoming physically drained and mentally unraveled. My focus at work was slipping. I'd find myself staring at my coworkers, wondering, is it you? I was operating on fumes. My patience worn down to a single frayed nerve. That Saturday, as I drove home with my stomach growling so loud it competed with the car radio, I knew something had to change. The victim act was over. The frustration had curdled and hardened into a single crystalline thought: revenge. My mind became a workshop of malicious ideas. I considered laxatives, but that felt too common, too cliché. I thought about a dye pack, something that would stain their hands and face for days, marking them as the thief. But that could get me fired for property damage. I needed something else, something personal. Something that would deliver an immediate, unforgettable, and deeply physical lesson. The punishment had to fit the crime. The crime was theft of a sensory pleasure, the taste and satisfaction of a good meal. The punishment, therefore, had to be a sensory torment, and that's when my mind landed on it. The perfect ingredient, the ghost of all peppers. The king of culinary pain, the Carolina Reaper. For those of you who don't know, the Carolina Reaper is one of the hottest chili peppers on the planet. It's not food, it's a biological weapon. A jalapeno sits at around 5,000 Scoville heat units. A habanero is about 200,000. The Carolina Reaper, it clocks in at over 1.5 million Scoville units. Eating one is said to be like swallowing a piece of the sun. It induces vomiting, blinding tears, and a sensation of pure, hellish fire that can last for hours. It was perfect. It was non-lethal, yet would provide maximum suffering. It was all natural, so I couldn't be accused of poisoning anyone with a chemical. And best of all, the evidence would be consumed by the thief himself. The plan wasn't just to stop the thief. The plan was to make them think twice before ever looking at another person's lunchbox again. That Saturday night, my kitchen transformed from a place of sustenance to a laboratory of vengeance. I went to a specialty store and bought 3 beautiful, deceptively small, wrinkled red Carolina Reapers. The cashier gave me a look that was 1 part concern, 2 parts respect. My mission: to craft the most delicious-looking, irresistible lunch imaginable. A Trojan horse of a meal. I decided on steak fajitas. I marinated the skirt steak for hours in lime juice, cumin, and chili powder. I sliced red and green bell peppers and sweet Vidalia onions. When it was time to cook, the sound of the steak hitting the hot, oiled cast-iron skillet was a symphony of sizzling perfection. The aroma filled my entire apartment. This had to be a masterpiece. The bait had to be irresistible. Then came the final, crucial step. I put on a pair of thick rubber gloves and a pair of safety goggles. This wasn't for show. The oils from a Reaper can cause chemical burns on your skin. I carefully took one, just one, of the little red devils and began to mince it. I diced it so finely, it almost became a paste. The fumes were immediate and caustic. Even with the window open and the fan on, the air in my kitchen began to burn. My eyes watered behind the goggles. It felt dangerous. It felt righteous. I mixed the minced Reaper into a fresh, vibrant pico de gallo, diced tomatoes, onions, jalapenos for cover, and cilantro. To an unsuspecting eye, it looked like a perfectly normal spicy salsa. But I knew it was a container of liquid fire. The assembly was a work of art. I laid out a warm tortilla. I piled on the sizzling steak and peppers. And then, I spooned a generous amount of my devil's pico de gallo right over the top. I made 2 of these beautiful, deadly fajitas. I placed them carefully into a pristine, clear Tupperware container. I garnished them with a sprig of cilantro and a couple of lime wedges on the side. I wanted the thief to see it. I wanted them to look through that clear lid and think they'd hit the jackpot. It wasn't just lunch, it was a trap. And it was beautiful. The next morning, a Sunday, I walked into the factory with a strange sense of calm. The anger was gone, replaced by a cold, thrilling anticipation. I placed the Tupperware in the break room fridge, front and center. I didn't put my name on it. I didn't need to. I knew its intended recipient would find it. Then, I went to my station, and I waited. The first hour of the shift crawled by. Then the second. Every time I heard footsteps near the break room, my head would snap up. The minutes stretched into an eternity. I started to second-guess myself. What if they didn't take it? What if someone else grabbed it by mistake? What if today was the one day the thief decided to pack his own damn lunch? And then, about 3 hours into the shift, it happened. It didn't start with a whimper. It started with a scream. It was a raw, guttural, choked sound that cut through the thunderous roar of the factory floor. It was a sound of pure agony. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Heads popped up from behind machines. The noise was coming from the break room. Then another scream. This one higher, more desperate. It was followed by a crash, like a chair being violently knocked over. Help! Somebody help him! A woman yelled. My heart was pounding against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of, oh my God, it worked. I feigned the same surprise as everyone else, dropping my tools and running towards the break room, my face a mask of manufactured concern. And the scene inside was chaos. There, on the grimy linoleum floor, was the lunchbox bandit. It was a guy from the shipping department. A big, burly guy I'd seen around. Someone who always carried himself with an air of smug entitlement. And he was on his hands and knees, clawing at his throat. His face was a terrifying, blotchy shade of crimson, beaded with sweat. His eyes were squeezed shut, tears streaming down his cheeks. He was gasping, making these horrible, wheezing sounds, like he was trying to breathe through a straw. And next to him, on the floor, was my Tupperware container. One fajita was gone. The other had a single, massive bite taken out of it. The trap had been sprung. The bandit had been caught. But something was wrong. This was more than just the pain of a hot pepper. He can't breathe. I think he's having an asthma attack. Someone shouted. My blood ran cold. Asthma. That had never, ever crossed my mind. My goal was pain, not asphyxiation. My plan was to teach a lesson, not to write a death certificate. A crowd was gathering. A supervisor was on the phone, his voice sharp with panic as he barked our location to a 911 dispatcher. The thief's gasps were getting weaker, his face turning from red to a horrifying shade of purple. He was literally suffocating. I just stood there, at the back of the crowd, a silent observer of the chaos I had unleashed. My feeling of triumph was gone, replaced by a churning cocktail of shock and a strange, detached horror. I watched as the paramedics burst in, pushing us all back. They put an oxygen mask on his face, started an IV, and loaded him onto a gurney. As they wheeled him out, his eyes briefly fluttered open, and for a fraction of a second, they met mine. There was no recognition, just pure, unadulterated agony. The factory was buzzing for the rest of the day. Whispers and theories flew. He must have a severe allergy. Someone said he just collapsed. I heard he had a heart attack. No one suspected the truth. I kept my head down, my mouth shut, and my hands steady as I worked. On the outside, I was just another concerned coworker. On the inside, my mind was a whirlwind. The lunchbox bandit was out for 2 days. When he came back, he was quiet, subdued. He avoided eye contact with everyone. He never went near the break room fridge again. He never said a word to me. He didn't have to. And I, of course, never said a word to him. The silence was our mutual understanding. He knew what he did was wrong, and I had delivered a consequence so severe, so personal, that it needed no explanation. Justice, in this case, was silent. My lunch was never stolen again. So I have to ask you, was the punishment proportionate to the crime, or did I go too far? Let me know what you think down in the comments. What's the most satisfying workplace revenge you've ever heard of? Thank you for watching. If you want more stories of justice being served, hot or cold, make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell on. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like. It tells the YouTube gods that you appreciate a well-earned comeuppance. Until next time.